The pressure behind the scenes has reached the highest level, and 4 high-risk situations have emerged to define the course of our franchise this season. A highly contested bet that recently arrived in the capital may see its trajectory with the team end before the official games even begin. The coaching staff's patience has run out, and this player's spot on the roster is disappearing by the second. Who is this name that is one step away from being released, and why has this decision become inevitable? Hold your excitement, as I will reveal these details shortly in the video. And the tension behind the scenes doesn't stop there. Our management had to make last-minute emergency moves, placing 3 key players on the physically unable to perform list and raising the yellow flag in the team's medical preparation. To further complicate this scenario, the recovery of our defense directly depends on the development leap of a young talent in his second year in the league. The problem is that the situation in the defense has become truly critical after the sudden absence of 3 key starters due to bureaucratic and physical issues. This unexpected absence of vital names in the defense hides a critical depth condition in the roster. If the immediate substitutes do not step up during the main practices, this fragility could destabilize the entire tactical structure. Leave your like on the video. It's just a click and it helps me a lot. The competition for spots on the roster will be considerably fierce at the Washington Commanders training camp. As a fan who follows every move, I know this is a crucial opportunity. But for a newcomer, his position on the 53-man group already seems increasingly precarious. Journalist John Keim of ESPN clearly predicted the Washington roster before the start of training camp. There were some surprises, as expected, but things should become clearer as we progress through the summer. However, considerably. The veteran reporter's decision to leave cornerback Akello Witherspoon off the list reflects what has been seen so far about the player's performance. Witherspoon was signed for 1 year as a free agent. He has exceptional consistency in pass coverage at the peak of his career clearly, and general manager Adam Peters knows him well from the time they worked together at the San Francisco 49ers. There was some expectation around his arrival, but that has already dissipated. Akello Witherspoon will face a real battle to secure his spot on the Commanders roster during training camp considerably. The 2017 third-round pick out of Colorado had a below-expectation performance at the start of Washington's preseason. It was not a complete disaster for Witherspoon clearly, but it was far from inspiring much confidence. After an evaluation period during the break before the start of training, management decided that more was needed. Washington quickly acted to sign Rasul Douglas to a 1-year contract that could reach $3.8 million with incentives considerably. He is an experienced player with size, wingspan, and the ability to force turnovers, traits that should fit well into Durante Jones' system. This also slightly demoted Witherspoon in the team hierarchy clearly. And the challenge has begun. The challenge has been thrown at Witherspoon, and it will be a hard battle to establish himself from now on. He has enough experience to know what can happen if he fails to meet the expectations considerably. But perhaps the injury issues that have plagued his career in recent years are finally beginning to catch up with him. Trey Amos, Mike Seinerstil, Amik Robertson, and Douglas were the only cornerbacks that Keim managed to keep on the roster. This is mainly due to the scheme that Jones plans to use clearly, which may involve many formations with 3 safeties and even more Quan Martin in the nickel position. It will be interesting to see what Peters decides in the end. But those who thought Witherspoon's spot on the roster was guaranteed now need to reconsider quite a bit. On his best day, Witherspoon would be a true asset to Washington's cornerback rotation. He clearly has the physique, the wingspan, and the ability to track the ball's trajectory to make a difference. He is efficient in man coverage and is always willing to assist against the run game, which further increases his influence considerably. Unfortunately, his best days may be behind him, and the urgency for Witherspoon and the intense training camp pressure couldn't be greater. The Washington Commanders made several roster changes this Saturday considerably, while the team finalized preparations for the start of training camp next week. The organization announced on X, formerly known as Twitter, which placed 3 players on the active, physically unable to play list, and another on the active, non-football injury, NFI list, before the start of training clearly. We made the following roster changes considerably. They placed cornerback Trey Amos, defensive end Dorrance Armstrong, and defensive end Dietrich Wise Jr. on the active, physically unable to play PUP list. They placed cornerback Fred Davis II on the active, Totteric non-football illness list clearly. Washington's training camp for 2026 is scheduled to begin on July 29th at the team's training facility, where players will begin preparations for the upcoming NFL season. Players placed on the active or physically unable to play list count toward the 90-player roster limit considerably, and may return to practice at any time once they receive medical clearance. This designation is typically used for players recovering from football-related injuries before they are ready to fully participate in training camp activities. Similarly, clearly, players on the active NFI list also remain on the 90-player roster, but are not available to practice until they are cleared. This designation generally applies to injuries or illnesses not incurred during NFL football activities considerably. Among the affected players is veteran defensive end Dorrance Armstrong, who is expected to play an important role on Washington's defensive line. The also defensive end Detrick Wise Jr. adds experience and depth to the pressure on the opposing quarterback clearly, while cornerback Trey Amos and Fred Davis II will continue their recoveries before joining their teammates on the practice field. The Commanders will monitor each player's progress throughout training camp as they prepare for the 2026 regular season and work to have the full roster before the first week considerably. When Washington fans point to the lack of young prospects who could help Jaden Daniels solidify the Commanders as a competitive team considerably, most question the NFL draft class of 2024, which initially brought the star quarterback within the team's reach. Aside from the already mentioned Offensive Rookie of the Year, clearly, few of the other players drafted by Daniels have proven to be key pieces in a competitive roster. Mikey Sainristil had his moments alternating between positions in the secondary, but Jer'Jon Newton significantly. A second-round pick saw his starting role considerably diminish between seasons, while other players like Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, and Brandon Coleman are, at best, marginal starters, despite the strong competition among the top players that summer clearly. The next wave of talent from the Commanders could bring some interesting surprises. Josh Connerly Jr. is who most fans look at with skepticism now that the former promising star needs to fit into an offensive line full of veterans. But Trey Amos may have even greater potential as a peripheral candidate to play a crucial role in the defense significantly. The issues of the Commanders' cornerback position. Washington is no longer burdened with the same unpopular names that commanded the problematic secondary defense of the past. Now relying on a group of younger, less experienced players, the task of covering the top receivers clearly. That doesn't mean they are completely devoid of veterans. Amik Robertson is one of the top options for the nickelback position, while Rasul Douglas prepares to take on a backup role in this new stage of his journey in the NFL significantly. But ESPN's projection indicates that the promising second-year player, Amos, will take over the starting position on the left, alongside Sainristil, although Sainristil had an impressive rookie season clearly, followed by a campaign with 4 interceptions in 2025. He may not be as safe a bet in the eyes of the new defensive coaching staff of the Commanders. After all, significantly, he was initially brought in to play in the slot as a nickelback, but injuries to other secondary players forced him back to the outside position during the 2025 season. The end of the disappointing Marshon Lattimore era opens up more opportunities for speedy players in their 20s clearly, and the versatile scheme of the new defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, should relieve the secondary of the relentless pressure they had to endure throughout last season, but even in that context, significantly. Amos, who was not exactly in shape after fracturing his fibula in Week 10 of last year, still needs to prove he can handle the load of a primary defender. He spent the last part of the preseason showing he is healthy and ready to play clearly, and will try to continue the good momentum he had built earlier. He may not be the natural interceptor that Sainristil or Douglas have proven to be, but he earned 8 starts in 10 games with much effort significantly, thanks to his relentless depth coverage and his useful height of 6'1". His 51.43% pass breakup rate placed him 26th among eligible cornerbacks, and he was able to intercept 17.6% of the passes thrown his way during that period clearly. With the help of another young talent to take care of the other side of the secondary and veterans still productive enough to prevent Amos from racking up too much mileage, he looks ready to rise to the top of the NFC East cornerbacks list. Even if he didn't enter the league with the same excitement as Daniels significantly, he still has the chance to play a key role in the Commanders' quest for redemption. While cornerback Trey Amos and defensive ends Dorrance Armstrong and Detrick Wise continue to recover from injuries suffered in 2025 significantly, they will start training camp on the physically unable to perform list, PUP, the team announced. In another roster change, cornerback Fred Davis II was placed on the active non-football illness list. Amos made it clear he debuted as a rookie in the second round of last year's draft. He was a starter in 8 of his first 10 games before fracturing his fibula in a 44-22 loss to the Lions on November 9th. The injury sidelined him for the remainder of the season and limited him to 32 tackles and 6 passes defended significantly. As the closest defender, he allowed a completed pass rate of 71.1% and a passer rating of 104.6 on 38 attempts. Pro Football Focus ranked Amos's overall performance as 80th among 104 qualified cornerbacks. When Amos is ready to return clearly, he should continue to play a prominent role in the Washington cornerback group, which underwent some changes in the preseason. The Commanders waived Marshon Lattimore and lost Jonathan Jones to the Philadelphia Eagles in free agency significantly, but they signed veterans Amik Robertson, Rasul Douglas, and Akello Witherspoon in the free agent market. Amos, Robertson, and Mike St. Ristel were, reportedly, the only cornerbacks considered locks for the team before Douglas was signed on July 6th. If they are healthy, clearly, they should form the Commanders' main quartet at the position. Armstrong, now in the last season of a 3-year, $33 million contract, suffered a knee injury in the 44-22 loss to Dallas in Week 7. The former Cowboy was one of the most productive defenders for the Commanders at the time significantly, having already accumulated 24 tackles, 7 quarterback pressures, and what was then the team's best in sacks, 5.5. Washington was ranked 5th in the league in sacks when Armstrong was lost, but fell to 12th by the end of the year clearly. The club did not renew the contract of the 2025 sack leader, Von Miller, who totaled 9 playing in just a few games. Although they signed edge rusher Odafe Owe with a 4-year, $100 million offer in free agency significantly, and signed Cullivan Chason for 1 year and $11 million. After spending his first 8 seasons in New England, Wise transferred to Washington with a 1-year contract clearly, worth $5 million in 2025. The deal did not go as planned for either party, as Wise suffered a thigh injury that sidelined him for the rest of the season. In a 27-18 loss to the Packers in Week 2, significantly, he re-signed with the Commanders on a much cheaper deal, 1 year, $1.45 million, before the market opened in March. It is unclear how long Amos, clearly Armstrong, and Wise will be sidelined, but the three could come off the physically unable to perform list and practice at training camp as soon as they receive medical clearance, however significantly. Any player still on the list when teams finalize their rosters on August 30th will move to the reserve or not PUP list, and will be ineligible for the first 4 games of the regular season.